life. That's what we'll be talking about today. Pray with me. God, give us the courage to hear what we need to hear, to do what you are calling us to do, and give us trust in your unfailing love for us. Amen. So none of us like to talk about money, especially in church. We probably don't like to talk about it over the dinner table. If we do start talking about it, what ends up usually happening is maybe your heart rate starts increasing and you get agitated, and then you start bickering and maybe starting fighting. Not too often do our discussions of money think, oh, this is great, this is exciting, I'm glad we're here. But here we are, on a sunny Sunday morning, right before a meal is being prepared over here, and you're stuck here listening to me talk about money. Congratulations. So we don't like talking about money because I think that it exposes something very true about us. You see, money isn't either good or bad in and of itself. It doesn't have its own moral quality about it. But the way that we use money, the way that we relate to money, exposes what we value. It exposes our true character. And when you get to that point of vulnerability, then that becomes hard to start talking about it, because maybe we don't want to let out the fact that really and truly we live in fear, or that we live for the consumption of things, and we don't want to let that out. We're afraid to talk about money because we have an unhealthy relationship with it. This isn't just a modern American phenomenon where we have an unhealthy relationship with money. You see, when Jesus walked the earth, the topic that he talked about more than anything else, more than heaven, more than hell, he talked about money. Because even back then, there was an unhealthy relationship with money. You look at the Old Testament and the Hebrew prophets, they're constantly talking about the use of money, because even then there was an unhealthy relationship with money, and this is a strand that runs throughout all of humanity, through all of history. So it is something that we have to talk about. It's something that we have to expose in ourselves. Now, in American culture, I think there are some things that we can identify that are specific to us here in the 21st century in America, and how we relate to money in unhealthy ways. In many ways, this is tied to what's called the American dream. So the American dream can be defined as a desire for success, a desire for achieving independence through our possession of things, through our possession of land. We desire this independence. So is there anything wrong with success, with independence, with possessions? And just like money, there's nothing in and of itself wrong with that. But what gets us into trouble is this desire and the drive for it. So elsewhere in 1 Timothy, the Apostle Paul writes this: "In their eagerness to be rich, some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pains." That eagerness, that desire, that drive not only gets us in trouble, it may actually drive us away from the faith. So there's a Methodist pastor, Adam Hamilton. You've probably read some of his books, or maybe done a small group study around some of his books. He wrote a book called Enough that talks about a biblical view of money and how to use it wisely and what generosity is. He identified there's 3 different illnesses that we have here in America with our money. So these illnesses are affluenza, kind of like affluence, but affluenza. You've got credititis, and a restless heart syndrome. So what are these things? Affluenza. This is tied to our constant need for more and more, for bigger and better, and it consumes us. It consumes us not only in our relationship with money, but in our relationship with organizations and everything we do. We always have to be doing something bigger and better. We want more and more. This is difficult for us to fight against because we're constantly told, not only by advertisers, but we're told by Wall Street itself that this is a good thing. That our national economy is actually made stronger and healthier by going out and shopping. When the September 11th attacks happened, just weeks after that, our president, in both news conferences and interviews, he told us, go shopping. If you stop shopping, then the terrorists win. That's what we were told. Because shopping and consuming drives our economy. So economists, presidents, they tell us to go shopping because it's our patriotic duty so that our economy can grow and be strong. But if we look at the Gospels, in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus says something a little bit different, actually quite a bit different. It says, take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. So which one do we believe? Do we believe economists and politicians, or do we believe Jesus? And as we're sitting in a room of a church, probably no one is going to say out loud, I believe the economists and the politicians. We're all going to say, I believe Jesus. But belief is not just something we say or something we think. Believing is doing. Does your life reflect your belief that Jesus is actually speaking to a better world where our life does not consist of our possessions? So the sickness of affluenza, then you have the sickness of credit-itis. Debt and credit wreak havoc in our own personal lives, and oftentimes financial issues and debt lead to marriage issues, and it is one of the leading causes of divorce. But credit-itis leads us into this place where instant gratification wins. That you can enjoy something now and pay for it later. So again, just like I had said before with the idea of shopping, that it grows an economy, we get the same kind of messages actually with credit and with loans. That these things drive our economy, and in some ways you can say it is the basis of capitalism, the very economic system that we live in. One of the ways that we gauge our national economic health is by what are the interest rates. Because the lower that the interest rates are, the more likelihood that people are going to go out and get loans, purchase things, and advance our economy. So we're told, go out, get a loan, get the stuff now so you can move forward. This has a downside to it, because that downside then is the debt that we get into. And when everything is on credit, and it's even more so nowadays with our credit cards, because how many of you actually carry around cash? How many of you pay your bills with cash? How many of you get paid by your employer with cash? All this money is virtual. And it's hard to actually get a grasp on our money and on our resources. I think of the movie It's a Wonderful Life. We're coming into holiday season. That's one of our traditional movies we always watch on Christmas Eve. And if you remember the scene when George Bailey, he's getting ready to leave for his honeymoon. And it's pouring down rain out. This is set in the time of the Depression. And before they can get out of town, they look back and they say, uh-oh, George, looks like there's a bank run. So he goes back to his old beloved Bailey Building and Loan that he hates and he loves all at the same time. He goes in there and everybody's demanding their money right now. And so he says, and I'm not an impersonator, so I can't do my Jimmy Stewart voice, but he says, now you're thinking about this all wrong, as though I had the money back in a safe. The money's not here. Your money's in Joe's house, and in the Kennedy house, and in Miss Manklin's house. Our money, we don't live in a cash society. Our money is this virtual thing that we can't get a grasp on, and that leads us more and more into this place where instant gratification can rule the day. Because when we go into a store, out in the parking lot, you may have had one thing that you had to get at that store. And then you walk in, and all of a sudden the bright, shiny advertisements and the enticing clearance sale gets you, and all of a sudden you have this feeling that you cannot do without this particular product, which 5 minutes ago wasn't even in your mind. And so maybe if we had a wad of cash in our billfold, we would pull that out and say, okay, I don't have the money for it. But see, we live in a culture with virtual currency, and so we just put it on a card and do it and give in to that instant gratification. This causes then an accumulation of stuff. More and more stuff to fill up our houses, to fill up our storage sheds with things that we don't need and things that we didn't even afford in the first place. So affluenza, credititis, and then a restless heart syndrome. This last one is really primarily about being discontent. We're always wanting more. And the thing about always wanting more is you're always wanting more. Because once you get it, then you keep wanting more. That desire doesn't go away. In Hebrews 13:5, it says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. For God has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. Our sicknesses of affluenza and credititis drive us to more and getting more instantly, and we never have enough. We know this to be true, that we don't gain our satisfaction from our possessions, but yet we still keep doing it. We keep doing it. So I'd mentioned Adam Hamilton, this author. He says this, and I think he says it very, very well, that inside of us there is a brokenness. Our souls were created in the image of God, but they have been distorted. We were meant to desire God, but we have turned that desire toward possessions. We were meant to find security in God, but we find it in amassing wealth. We were meant to love people, but instead we compete with them. We were meant to enjoy the simple pleasures of life, but we busy ourselves with pursuing money and things. We were meant to be generous and to share with those in need, but we selfishly hoard our resources for ourselves. We are a broken people. We're meant for a life that really is life. Desiring God, finding security in God, being generous with others and sharing, loving people, finding simple pleasures in life. This is a life that really is life. So when we talk about having a healthy relationship with money, I don't think the conversation should start with budgets. The conversation should start with questions like, what is life about? Why do you exist? Do you simply exist to consume as much as you can and get as much pleasure as you can while you're here on earth? Or do you have a higher purpose? How do you understand your life purpose, your vision, your mission? And then, how does your spending and use of money reflect that purpose that is in your life? That's the healthy relationship with money, is that we are using it in support of a life that really is life, in support of our own mission and vocation. A life that really is life. We can use money to create any life that we want, and it's simply just a facade. The life that really is life, as George had read for us, actually comes from generosity, from sharing, from doing good works. Again, the author Adam Hamilton says this: as we allow Christ to work in us, seeking first his kingdom and striving to do his will, we begin to sense a higher calling, a calling to simplicity and faithfulness and generosity. We begin to look at ways we can make a difference with our time and talents and resources by pursuing good financial practices. We free ourselves from debt so that we are able to be in mission to the world. If God calls us to go and to do or to give, we can because we are free. You see, if we're caught up in the sicknesses of affluenza and credititis and restless heart syndrome, then we won't have the resources to pursue the mission of God. Simplicity, faithfulness, and generosity are at the core of who we are, and it's at the core of a life that really is life. So what does generosity then mean in the church? We set aside a particular portion of our income, such as what we're doing this morning with those pledge cards. We're setting aside that portion as a way of saying, God, I'm returning to you a portion of what I have and what I've earned to say thank you, and I hope that this makes a difference in the world. We set aside a particular portion of our income as a way to enlarge our own hearts in joy and generosity. Because we do know that common phrase of it's better to give than to receive. We know that to be true. That's what causes joy in life. And being in a generous lifestyle means that we're also participating in ways that line up with our mission and our vocation and our higher calling. That gives us joy. And setting aside a particular portion of our income is a way of saying, I am a part of this church community. And this church community is a part of me. So, as we begin to enter in to a season of shopping and spending and Black Friday deals, let us take hold of the life that really is life through generosity. As we commit to God and to each other our pledges of giving, let us take hold of the life that really is life through generosity. Amen.